We're floating peacefully in space, entering a space station called Athena 1, but it looks like something has gone horribly wrong. The ship is almost destroyed on the inside. Looks like someone threw a wild party here and completely lost their head. We meet Atkins. Reports that something went wrong during the tests, and now everything's gone to hell. Atkins tries to escape, but Central Control tells her she can't leave without the test subject. And who's the test subject? A rat. It turns out this shady corporation was conducting genetic editing experiments on animals, and of course, everything went wrong. Now the station is falling apart, and the entire crew is dead. So the last remaining doctor is forced to try and recover samples of this mutant-creating pathogen and bring them back to Earth, all while being chased by an evil Mickey Mouse. She manages to escape the initial explosion. But oh wait, the mutant rat had scratched part of the capsule's glass, and with all the pressure from space and everything, the capsule doesn't hold up for long and ends up breaking apart. So she dies, and the vials with the pathogen fall into Earth's atmosphere. Now we're heading to Jumanji, where we find ourselves walking through the jungle with The Rock. He's brought a group of people here to learn about his work, watching how a male gorilla tries to win over his girl with the ancient art of mating. Anyway, The Rock then shows us how skilled he is at communicating with the gorillas, and they listen to him. We also meet George, the Yeti from Monsters, Inc. Actually, he's the albino gorilla, the leader of this gorilla troop. The two are great friends and have a lot of fun together. George has a unique sense of humor, scaring all the humans around and flipping The Rock, who, by the way, is named Davis, the middle finger. Pretty funny. But anyway, after a failed attempt at flirting,
You have time for a drink?
Thank you anyway, I appreciate it.
Davis heads home. But before he leaves, his colleague asks him why he always feels more comfortable around animals than people. Davis simply says that he prefers the company of animals over humans. I feel you, bro. Sometimes you just can't deal with people. As Davis drives home, the pathogen samples that entered the atmosphere fall like meteorites. One lands in George's habitat, another in a forest near a wolf, and the third in a river near a crocodile. These three animals inhale the pathogen, so now the mutation begins. The next day, The Rock finds his friend George very frightened because he got into a fight with a grizzly bear and killed it. Davis tries to approach and talk to him with the power of friendship, but the gorilla looks very sad and distressed. And on top of that, he's grown much larger due to the gas. Finally realizing something strange is going on, the bald guy and his team head to where the meteorite fell, the container with the pathogen, and determine that it's what changed the once gentle and calm George. Now, they'll have to get to the bottom of this. Meanwhile, in a supermodern building, we meet siblings Claire and Brett, the owners of the shady corporation responsible for creating the mutant killer animals. They lost billions after the explosion of their space lab, and since the only remaining samples of the pathogen are the ones that fell in Wyoming, they hire Burke's mercenary group to capture George and the other mutated animals. So, this G.I. Joe-style squad gets ready for the mission.
Nice.
They board a helicopter and head deep into the forests of Wyoming. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a pharmacist sees the news about the space station explosion and starts to suspect what's really going on. But let's get back to the military operation. The helicopter lands, and they gear up for the mission to recover the container, but they find an entire pack of wolves massacred. They're then tasked with capturing the wolf infected with the pathogen. Back at the sanctuary, Davis is desperate to understand what's happening to George, as the blood tests don't look good. Now, we meet Kate, the same woman who was watching the news. It turns out, she's actually a genetic engineer who learned about the shady experiments of the suspicious corporation. She tells The Rock that she used to work for this company, and explains what's happening to George. He keeps growing and becoming more aggressive because the pathogen from the shady corporation has a very unstable formula, and the results can vary greatly. However, she has developed a compound that can balance the growth and development uniformly. In short, Kate is the only one who can save George. Unfortunately, the albino King Kong gets tired of waiting, breaks out of his cage, destroys everything, and heads out into the streets. Davis manages to convince the police officers not to shoot, but then a military helicopter arrives, and they take down the confused George with powerful tranquilizers. In the jungle, Burke finds the wolf, and it seems to get a good shot at him. But when they reach the impact site, they realize it has moved and is much bigger than it seemed. Now they're wondering where this giant wolf, practically Godzilla-sized, could be. The wolf then goes to take out the entire squad one by one. Even when the extraction helicopter arrives, the wolf jumps and destroys the rotors, sending the helicopter crashing down. Now our bad boy is all by himself, and the cute dog is behind him with his huge teeth and bad breath.
Ew.
Of course, Burke doesn't stand a chance, and the wolf ends up eating him like a cookie. Now in the city, the military takes Davis and Kate to a base where they're handcuffed and brought before the man in charge, Harvey. The Rock and Harvey have a tense, testosterone-fueled exchange, with both men brimming with intensity. The agent tells them that since this giant gorilla is a threat to society, they're going to transport him on a plane. The Rock warns that it's a very dangerous and stupid idea, but Harvey insists that they'll do things his way. So, they're also taken on the plane along with the mutant gorilla, who it turns out has the same superpower as Deadpool, healing his wounds surprisingly quick. During the flight, the agent reveals they work for an unnamed government organization, and that George isn't the only one. There's also a loose mutant wolf that the internet has nicknamed Ralph. The Rock cuts him off, warning that the sedatives will soon wear off due to George's accelerated growth, and he'll wake up and tear the plane apart. Harvey dismisses the concern, saying they've calculated everything carefully. He also reveals that Karen no longer works for the shady corporation. She was caught trying to steal company information over 2 years ago and was sentenced to a year in prison. So yes, Karen has tricked us.
I'm a bad liar!
And she even admits that she doesn't actually know how to save George. But anyway, the evil siblings set their next plan in motion to obtain samples of their pathogen. They activate an antenna in their building that sends out low-frequency waves, which will guide the fallen creatures directly to them. Once the military takes them down, the siblings will simply collect a DNA sample from the monsters and then sell the pathogen formula for billions of dollars. Easy money, huh?
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
And the antenna starts working, catching the attention of Ralph the Wolf, who was busy snacking on a bus, Lisa the Lizard, who's a very good swimmer, and finally the curious George, who wakes up in a very bad mood, like when you hit snooze one too many times and realize you're late for work, but instead of being cranky, you turn into a giant monster. Well, turns out, The Rock was right. Putting the gorilla on a plane was a very dangerous and stupid idea. I told you, but no, they didn't listen. Anyway, George breaks free, and the gorilla brawl begins. The albino King Kong takes out all the military personnel on board, and the plane starts going down in flames. But The Rock gets the idea to grab the parachutes from under the seats, saving the lying Karen and also carrying the unconscious Harvey before George can reach them. And so, they fly until they safely reach the crash site where the plane lies in pieces. In the wreckage of the plane, the three of them can't find the gorilla's body, and that's because his regenerative factor has improved even more, if that's possible. Basically, he's becoming immortal. Agent Harvey thanks The Rock for saving his life, and now it looks like they've become good friends. They wait for the FBI to show up, but in the meantime, a group of agents heads to the evil corporation's building to check things out. Claire steps in, acting all innocent and saying, "We didn't do anything wrong, and we're happy to cooperate, officer." Meanwhile, The Rock tells Karen they won't be working together anymore because she's a liar, but she explains why he should trust her. She reveals that the shady corporation hired her years ago, and she was the one who perfected the DNA editing formula. Karen wanted to use this technology to cure her sick brother, but Claire and Brett wanted to use it to make biological weapons. When Karen found out, she tried to destroy the formula, but they caught her and sent her to prison. The worst part is that while she was locked up, she couldn't help her sick brother, and he died. That's a pretty tough backstory. So now that her story is out, The Rock decides to team up with Karen. Together, they'll fight to save George and stop the evil siblings and their corporation from hurting more people. Now, Agent Harvey takes them to meet an army colonel. Meanwhile, George and Ralph the Wolf are heading toward Chicago, where the antenna is. The military can't figure out how these two animals are working together, but Karen explains. She says the Shady Corporation used echolocation on them because their DNA includes some bat genes, which apparently respond well to frequency signals. The Rock asks the Colonel to come with him to Chicago because these monsters can't be stopped, but the Colonel says no, so the Rock tells the soldiers outside to move, and then he does what anyone would do. He decides to steal a helicopter. Agent Harvey shows up and says, "Got it, here are the keys, bro. Have a nice day." What a pleasant guy. Now our heroes head to Chicago to try and stop George and Ralph. Luckily, because the military's attempt to take them down with a bomb failed miserably and the monsters ate everyone, the Rock did warn them. When the team finally arrives in Chicago, they find George and Ralph wrecking the city, breaking buildings, smashing tanks, and taking down helicopters. And to make things even worse, the Lizard shows up to the party too. That's right, the Three Musketeers. These titans are having a blast tearing up the city, while the Rock and Karen head to the Shady Corporation's building, hoping there might be an antidote for the pathogen there. At the military base, the Colonel orders a massive bomb to be dropped on the city to take out the monsters. But Harvey argues that his friends are getting the antidote to stop the monsters without blowing up half of Chicago. The Colonel, being incredibly stubborn, tells Harvey to shove it, proving to be a real fool. The Rock and Kate reach the corporation's building, and after breaking through a few doors, they find the famous cure, a serum that could save George. But then Claire and Brett show up. Claire explains that this isn't exactly a cure. It won't return the animals to their normal size, but it will make them less aggressive and murderous. She demands that Karen hand over the cure and tells them to come along. When the Rock refuses, she shoots him. They make their way to the building's rooftop, where the sweet little animals arrive to destroy the antenna that's been calling them all this time. Claire is about to finish off Karen, but George arrives. Brett runs away, and the gorilla grabs the helicopter, leaving Karen in a tight spot. But wait, the bald guy is still alive. Karen tells him that she hid a sample of the cure so they could give it to George. The problem is they don't know how to administer it. Luckily, the evil Claire returns, and the Rock calls out to the gorilla. Karen puts the cure in her bag and takes down Claire. However, there's still the issue of Brett. He's run down the stairs and bumps into Agent Harvey, who tells him, "Hand over your laptop with the incriminating evidence, and I'll let you go." Brett replies, "Sure thing, sir. I'm happy to. I don't even like my sister." So, this coward hands over the laptop and leaves happy, only to get crushed by a falling wall. The agent heads off in another direction, but with all the chaos caused by the gorilla, wolf, and lizard, the building is collapsing. Our heroes scramble into a damaged helicopter, trying to stay afloat as the massive structure falls apart. After the crash, we see that our muscle-bound bald guy and Karen have survived practically unscathed, just like the monsters. The good news is that the cure worked, and George is back to being the friendly albino gorilla from the start. They decide to take down the other two monsters, while Karen goes to find Agent Harvey to cancel the airstrike.
Hey, this is Viper 2-5. Escort, over. Roger 2-5, call for fire to follow.
Donkey Kong Albino and the Rock face off against Ralph and Lisa the Lizard.
Oh, shit!
The gorilla, now armed with a metal beam, takes down the crocodile. Next up is Ralph, who gets thrown around, literally. The Rock comes up with a plan, tossing a grenade at the wolf and making it crash into the lizard. It works. The lizard devours the wolf's head. So, our bald guy throws more grenades at the lizard, but it's not very effective. George then rips out a fang and uses it to stab the lizard, but that doesn't do much either. The Rock keeps pulling out his arsenal, but the lizard keeps coming. It tries to crush our hero with its tail, but George steps in to save the Rock. The lizard throws the gorilla and impales him. But the noble gorilla doesn't give up. He breaks free, and just as the lizard is about to eat his best friend, George impales it in the brain with the same metal beam that hurt him. What a fight, man. Seeing that the power of friendship and the Rock's charisma have saved the day, the Army colonel decides to cancel the airstrike. Chicago isn't completely destroyed after all. The Rock and George chat a bit, with the bald guy admitting he owes his life to George, who gives him a friendly smile. But all that fighting left our gorilla pretty beat up, and he takes his last breath, thinking he saved a lot of lives. Just then, Karen, Agent Harvey, and the military show up and get the remaining civilians to safety. And that's where the story should end. But wait, it's not true, folks. George is actually alive and just playing a joke on his bald friend.
I just saw you open your eye.
You think you're so funny, huh? He even gestures to these two that they should hook up.
No, come on, dude. Have some class.
And everyone has a good laugh.
Kate, I'm so sorry. George, stop.
Now, they'll focus on helping the rest of the civilians and finding a new home for the primate. And that's it for today. If you enjoy movie recaps, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. See you at the next movie.